10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, welcome to another edition of the Rising Coaches Member Spotlight. Today we are joined by Trey Ford, GA at Carson Newman. What's up, Trey?
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
Doing great.
You're in the car to get a little peace and quiet outside of the gym?
Yeah, had to get away from the players a little bit. They're nonstop in and out the office throughout the day, so this is the quietest place I could find for this.
Well, if you got players coming in and out, that's a good thing. You're doing something right. So Trey, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Obviously, you're at Carson Newman now, but tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you got into coaching.
I'm from Lake Norman, North Carolina. Went to high school, played at Lake Norman High School, and then ended up playing basketball at Appalachian State for Coach Fox for 4 years. And then after that, really got into coaching. Went back to Lake Norman, coached for a year, and then got involved with the Team Curry program based out of Charlotte. So I was very fortunate to be involved with that for a year. And then one of my former assistants, Brian Lentz at Tennessee, actually hooked me up with this job here, got me in contact with Coach Benson and interviewed for it, liked it here, and, just went with that.
So tell us about, well, I guess before we get into like your experience at App State, we asked everybody for their scouting report for them as a player. So what was the scouting report on you, Trey?
Don't let me shoot. That was it. Make me dribble. Don't let me shoot. No space. That was.
Were you a two? You played the two?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Just strictly catch and shoot guy coming off curls. Yep. You can shoot it on the move, all just that.
Space. I was there sitting in the corner, spacing the floor. Letting the other guys, do what they do, get to the rim. Nice.
So let's talk about App State a little bit. Coach Fox he's a Davidson guy, right?
Yes, he is. Yes, sir.
So were you guys running pretty complex stuff offensively and a lot of player movement, ball movement?
Yeah. We ran kind of his version of the Davidson system there. It was pretty complicated at first, but I mean, once you get it, it's ingrained in your memory. We did it so much every day to where it was second nature, to where, one guy denies a screen, there's 8 different reads off of it, and it's all read based, but we drilled it so much and so frequently that, you really didn't have to think about it after you really, really understood what we were doing.
I only know one of your rules, and let's make sure, let's do a little quiz here to make sure I got it right, because I may be wrong. But if you're in the corner spaced, and there's penetration coming at you, as soon as they cross free throw extended, you should start filling behind the ball. Is that right?
That is correct. Yep. That is
okay.
That's our decision point, our trigger point right there. Is anytime it crosses the elbow, it's an automatic lift. So we're taking that defender away from the handler right there.
And so your whole offense is filled with different reads like that and rules like that.
Yep. There's about probably 6 or 7 base rules for it. Just if someone curls my screen, what do I do off that? If they back cut my screen, where do I go? Just simple stuff like that are kind of non-negotiables, but really set the foundation for it.
Gotcha. And then you go work for Team Curry. Was that a Davidson? Was that a Coach Fox connection there too?
It was actually my old AAU program, Pro Skills Basketball, actually took over or started the Team Curry teams, I guess. So it was kind of a Davidson connection because it's Brendan Winters who played at Davidson. So I played for him for AAU, and then I hit him up like, hey, I'm back in the area. Is there anything I can do with the program? So I signed on just to kind of get back into the PSB program. And then he approached me later. He's like, we got some big news. We're going to start, Team Curry. Would you like to be involved with that? And it was kind of a no brainer for me, obviously. But, so I was the director of basketball operations for Team Curry, and as well as coach for the 15U for a year.
Yeah. I feel like not enough young coaches coach AAU like at the beginning. You've got a little freedom because you can go work with prospects. You're not held down. You're not an assistant coach at a Division I or something. Like you can go do that stuff. How was that AAU experience? Did you learn a lot?
Yeah, I learned a ton, honestly. I was kind of, take it with a grain of salt with all the COVID stuff. And it took us a while to get going and get to events. But after we got, going to events, I learned a ton coaching wise, honestly, because it's, I've always seen AAU from the player's perspective, but now back as a coach and like all the little stuff that goes on, it was really eye opening, and I was able to gain a lot from that.
Yeah, and Team Curry or PSP is so well run too.
Oh yes. Yep.
Let's talk about Coach Winters for a second and give him some love. Like he does such a good job with that program. There's this stigma about AAU basketball, which I think is BS, across the board, that AAU is disorganized and they don't practice and they don't work. It's just pick up ball. I think that's generally false across the board, but there's no better example of that than PSB, because you guys, again, you run that Davidson system. You guys are flaring, back screening, rescreening. It's like run like a college program. And I think a lot of AAU programs are like that, but can you talk about like just the job that Coach Winters has done, setting up that program?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was with Pro Skills since the start. Actually, I was part of their first team when we were the Charlotte Reign for our first year, and then became PSB. But I've been able to be there since the ground floor, and it's really amazing to see how successful they have been by doing it the right way. Like focusing on development at young ages, practicing, teaching the game instead of just, rolling the ball out and letting them go. But I mean, I think it's just, it shows the work that, Coach Winters and Logan Kosmalski have done with it by opening all these new branches in different cities across the country. They have, branches in China now. It's just, it really, shows you that doing it the right way will get you great results.
Yeah, for sure. Worldwide.
Yeah, worldwide.
China. Okay, so after college and your stint with Team Curry, what happens next, Trey?
So after high school for a year and with my Team Curry, so I signed on with Team Curry and talked to Coach Winters, telling him my goal is to get to the college level. My goal is to eventually be a college coach, and he said says he'll do everything in his power to help me get there. So that's what part of the reason I signed on with Team Curry was to get, those connections formed and stuff throughout the summer and be able to talk to coaches. And then, so I just kept looking for jobs. It's such a hard, business to get into and find a place to hook on. But, so I just get a text from one of my former assistant, Brian Lentz. I have a school looking for a GA. I know the coach well, great guy. Would you be interested in coming up and interview for it? And obviously said yeah, and came up, took a visit around the school, and met Coach Benson, KT Carter, who's a member here, Rising Coaches, and it was just a great fit.
So how was that transition? Did you feel like you just got thrown in the deep end and it was like completely new, or did you feel like pretty prepared for everything?
A little bit of both. I think it was a mixture for me. Because the past year I'd spent, working guys out, training stuff, high schoolers, stuff like that. So that part of it wasn't as new for me. It was, all the other stuff you don't really think about, the office work, the logistics, setting up travel, making sure guys are going to class, eligible. It's just all the stuff you don't think about when you think about being a coach was all new, I guess.
And are you going into your first season there or second?
First. This is my first year here at Carson Newman.
Okay, cool. So how has like workouts and practice been, obviously through COVID and gearing up for the season now? Like, how's that whole process been for you guys?
It's, it feels like there's a different thing going on every day. So we're trying to go with the flow, make the most of what we got. Right now we're allowed to, do individuals, have hour practices. We got our 4 hours a week. So we're taking advantage of that. Right now we're planning on as if we're playing November 21st, which our schedule says. But it's really been tough because, it feels like every week it's, you can't do this, and the next week it's okay, maybe you can do this, and it's really, we're really just trying to, take advantage of every opportunity we have on the floor together.
Yeah, no question. And what was like, how was it? I know what it's like trying to find a job is hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then to try to find a job like during a pandemic
Yeah.
is like really crazy. So like, what were you doing? Like you couldn't go around and like work camps and meet people face to face. So like, how did you spend the pandemic mostly? And how did you manage like the stress of trying to find an opportunity?
So I handled it by, just telling myself, something's going to work out. I'll find something. But I mean, I was emailing everybody, texting everybody I knew. Do you know of anybody looking for that has an opening? Like I'll do anything to just get my foot in the door. It was just the thought never really crossed my mind. Like, okay, I won't find anything, because I just was every job opening I saw I was applying for, even if I wasn't qualified, just to get my resume in their hands. I just knew if I kept at it, something would hopefully come of it.
Yeah, and you're at Carson Newman, which is what? Is it Johnson City, Tennessee?
Jefferson City.
Jefferson
About
City.
an hour
Okay.
from Johnson City. Yep.
Is that closer to like the mountains or no?
Oh, a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And it's like a big time setup, right? Like very good facilities and campus and program.
Yeah, these are incredible facilities. This is the nicest facilities I've seen Division II wise. It's incredible here.
Yeah, that's great. Have you ever had like experience at the D2 level? I know you played at App State Division I, but have you seen like many?
So I was recruited by a lot of D2s too. App was the only Division I kind of I was talking to. So I mean, every other visit I took was to a Division II, and it gave me a good perspective. And especially since being here, like the stigma around Division II is it baffles me that like people think it's really such a step down when you see all the talent, especially in the SAC conference here with Queens and Lincoln Memorial, and it's great basketball at this level.
Really good. And you just mentioned two juggernauts, Queens and Lincoln Memorial are as good as they get, and can beat, probably 100 Division I teams between the two of them.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
They can play for sure. I know it's early and you haven't been able to be on the court too much, but what's your like early impression of like your team this year?
Oh, we got a great group of guys. Honestly, we got just a bunch of competitors. It's really, it shows in our individuals every day, in our practices and our lifts. It's just a bunch of guys that want to get better and really, really striving to learn and, take every ounce of coaching we give them. And I'm really, really fortunate to have a good group like this.
How are you trying to impact them, being new to it, but also having, 4 years of Division I under your belt, having coached a little bit at a couple different levels? Like, how are you like integrating with the team and making your impact on these guys?
I think it's through, just building relationships with them. I know showing them that I've been where they've been. I've pretty recently, and I do know what I'm talking about since I have played at the Division I level. But it's really, guys really care about what you say if you've invested in them and they know that you're trying to get them better and helping them reach their long-term goals, our team goals. And it's really just, that's what I've been trying to focus on as the new guy, new coach, is just coming in and building relationships so my words do mean something to these guys.
Yeah, well said, man. Really well said. And is there anybody that can like outshoot you on the team, or you still think you can?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I can't
No
say
way.
yes to that. Can't say yes to
You
that.
still got it? Okay, good.
Oh yeah.
Has anyone tried you yet or no?
I've tried them a couple times, just letting them know I still got it. So
yeah, good. Don't let them forget it. Well, you can do it. Take advantage of that. Well, Trey, I appreciate it, man. Why don't you leave us with like, I don't know if you're a big reader or podcast listener, but give us a recommendation or something. It could be a show, a movie that you've seen that has like motivated you or impacted you.
That's a good question. I'll throw it back with going off the Brendan Winters theme, he got me on the Jay Billis book, Toughness. That's the best book I've ever read in my life, and that's really had a big impact on me. He made us all read it when we were traveling throughout the summer, and that one really stuck with me.
Nice, great book, Toughness by Jay Billis. Always a good one. Can't go wrong with that one.
Yes, sir.
Well, Trey, I appreciate you being on here today, man. It's good to talk to you and learn a little bit more.
Yes,
and if there's anything we can do, don't hesitate.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Trey. All right, we're back with Otero head coach Ted Crass. Ted, great timing. I'm throwing you right in the deep end.
Great. Can you hear me good?
Yeah, you sound good, man. How are you?
I'm good, Coach. How you doing?
I'm doing really good. So talk to us, man. No one's had a more crazy off season than you. You got the head job, what, 6 months ago now at Otero?
I guess so, yeah. It's been mid-April.
Mid-April.
Yeah, it was crazy. I was at Abilene Christian under Coach Golding, and we were joking about it, that nobody was in a better situation than us. And the last NCAA tournament that we went to. And then we finished our recruiting class in November. And so then we were at the conference tournament. It gets canceled. Obviously, we're very disappointed for our seniors. And then a couple weeks go by, and all our fans thought we were going back to the NCAA tournament. So in their minds, we had back-to-back NCAA tournaments. We were done recruiting. We were kind of enjoying the quarantine a little bit and not too stressed out about life. And then I knew I wanted the opportunity to be a head coach, and I was fortunate enough to get this job. And life changed real fast with the pandemic, and then first time ever head coach. And then you know how junior college goes. I had to sign an entire roster. And then here we're asked to bring in numbers. So brought in, I got one returner and 29 new guys.
You guys got a JV team as well that you got to fill?
Not this year. We haven't in the past. My plan is to get one in place. I just think it makes it a little easier to keep that many guys.
29 guys with just one team?
With one, yep. I got 30 with one team. I got 4 of them now are managers, guys that want to be coaches, and then 10 of them will be redshirting. So, and two of them didn't make it to the day. They went and took jobs. So decided college basketball wasn't for them.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah. Well, Ted, let's get back. We'll come back to the craziness of Otero, but give us some of your background, man. Tell us where you're from and like how you got into coaching.
Yeah, I grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas. Went to Little Rock Central High School and played high school basketball the first couple years, and then I got in some trouble and was no longer on the basketball team. And I had a bunch of community service as a result of getting into some trouble, and I needed a lot of hours, so I signed up to coach 6-year-old Pinnock Boys Club basketball team, and fell in love with coaching at 15, 16 years old. And I turned that 6-year-old team into an AAU team, and then eventually it was an AAU program called the Arkansas Stars, and with Coach Williams at Pinnock Boys Club, and then we started the Arkansas Blue Chips. And then so I did that for 2 years, coached AAU through high school, and then I knew I wanted to get into college, so I was fortunate enough with Coach Shields to become a student manager at Arkansas Little Rock, where I went to undergrad. I was a manager for 3.5 years, and then when I was training kids and going to practice, I'd work out every day because I still love to play. And I was fortunate enough to become a walk-on, and I played for 1.5 years and was a senior captain on the youngest team in the country. I was the only senior on the team. It was a heck of a year. We found a way to have a winning record with a really young team, won 16 games. And then the director of basketball operations job opened up my first year out of college, and I was lucky to get go straight into coaching. And then I was in operations for 1 year, and then I was an assistant coach at Arkansas Little Rock I think I was 24, and I was there for 8 total years, including being a player and a manager. On the coaching level, I was there 4. Coach Shields got fired my 3rd year, and Coach Golding at Abilene Christian was an assistant when I was a player, and he was really good friends with Coach Beard. And so I was lucky to stay on with that staff. And obviously we had a heck of a run. We won 30 games, went to the NCAA tournament. Beard got the UNLV job for a couple of weeks, and then he was at Texas Tech. And I could have went with him and been off the road, but I wanted to stay on the coaching side if I could. So I left and went to Abilene Christian, and I was there for 4 years. And then last year around this time, I had breakfast with Coach Golding, and we just kind of talked about, he was good about, trying to develop me as a coach, and him and Coach Tanner, Brett Tanner, said that they thought while I was young, before I got a family, when one day I'll have to say no to opportunities like this, that I should be trying to get any level head coaching job to get that experience. Coach Tanner was a young head coach at Fort Scott. Coach Beer was a young head coach at Fort Scott Community College. And they just talked about how much better of an assistant it made them, and how much they learned from that experience. And so I tried all year to, network and prepare myself to get involved with a head coaching job, and none of them are easy to get, and this one wasn't any different. And I was fortunate with the help from a lot of people, including Coach Cole Dewey, the former coach here, and just giving me information about the job. And then Coach Beard and Coach Golding helped a lot, just getting me the opportunity. And then somehow I became a head coach. I talk to my guys a lot about dreams, and I think that's kind of my passion in life, is helping people figure out what their dream is, and then making a dream that's actually can become a reality. And I grew up wanting to be a player on the University of Kentucky, play basketball for the University of Kentucky, like a lot of young basketball players. And I was 5'9", white, not very athletic, and had a drug problem pretty young, and that wasn't going to happen. So I changed my dream to be the head coach at the University of Kentucky one day. And if I get there, I get there. Like back then, that's what I wanted to do. Now I don't too much care about the logo on the front. I just want to coach. But that's what I talk to my guys about, and that's why I really like this level, because I got a bunch of kids that are just like me. They just want an opportunity, they just want to be a part of, and just want somebody to work with them and show them how to get by in life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So much to talk about, Ted. How old are you
30.
now?
Well, it depends if you
30.
count the pandemic birthdays or not. I was supposed to turn 30 during the pandemic, but I was sitting in quarantine, so I'm gonna celebrate my 30th birthday next May. But yeah, I'm 30.
So it's not official yet. Official. You're unofficially 30. That's awesome, man. You've had a crazy journey and road, and let's dive into it a little bit more. Let's talk about Little Rock, like the basketball, like super underrated basketball city, right?
Absolutely, yeah. From your time in Southeast Missouri, I think this one thing about Little Rock is that, unlike Texas, now that I've lived in both states, there's only 3.5 million people in the whole state of Arkansas. So, there's not going to be as many players. And so there's not a lot of money in a recruiting service or stuff like that. Like in Texas, you got, tons of guys making a living doing, that's all they do, but from Coonstead, all there's, them all. There's a bunch of people that make a living just helping kids get recruited. In the state of Arkansas, there's not really enough kids just by numbers for that to be worth it. So I think that, there's not a lot of exposure for the kids. And then, I think that the educational system's getting better, but it wasn't great. It used to be that not a lot of kids even qualified. So, there's from Joe Johnson, to Archie Goodwin, there's always a couple guys that get the respect. There's usually about 5 Division I players in the state. But I think usually 6 through 30 are guys that are right on the fringe. If they lived in another state, could probably play Division I. But the basketball, Little Rock's a basketball city. The high school football is not very good right now. Like we had our starting point guard that took us to the NCAA tournament, Jalen Franklin, was about 6'1", almost 225, built like a linebacker or a running back. If he'd have grew up in Texas, he wouldn't have been playing with a round ball. I think there's a lot of guys that are big time athletes that in other states that have been asked to play football. But in Little Rock, if you're an athlete and you're any good, you're playing basketball.
No question. Those games are packed out, and you get some legendary coaches in the city
For
that
sure.
do a great job.
Yeah.
teaching the game, and so it's high level. Those state championships in Arkansas are big time.
Yeah, they're fun for sure.
So so you end up at Arkansas Little Rock under Coach Shields. Talk about Coach Shields a little bit. How many years? Do you know how many years total he was there?
Total, I think 16. As a head coach, I think 12.
Yeah, I was going to guess 13 as a head coach, which is 12.
Yeah, it might be 13. Yeah,
like that is not normal. Like you're doing something right if you're a head coach at one place for more than 10 years. Can you talk a little bit about him and the culture and just like him as a person?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be who I am today or where I am today without Coach Shields. He, like most, men in this world, we have a lot of father figures, guys that have kind of taken us under their wing. And, I'd have my dad number one, and then I think Coach Shields would be 2 or 3. He's right there as a father figure for me. And the way he treated me as a manager, I think that one thing you can judge people on is how they treat bottom tier guys, like how they treat their managers, how they treat the janitor, how they treat, the ladies in the cafeteria. And that's one thing Coach Shields, he knew every janitor by name. He knew his managers by name. He knew our stories, and he let me be a part of the coaching staff. He didn't expect me to just show up and do towels. Like, I had roles, and he let me coach to put me in a position where I was prepared to be there. But, as far as him being there so long, I think that, he might have stayed there too long. I don't think then Coach Shields didn't get fired for lack of production. I just think it was time for something new. But he was able to be there so long because of the way he treated people and the way, he was obviously a hell of a coach. We won a lot of games, but just the community loves him, and then, last year he was out of coaching for a year and got hired by the mayor of North Little Rock. And, like if he has a home in Little Rock because of how he treated people. But as a coach, he was very, very good at, delegating and letting people be involved. He had trust in me and had trust in his assistants and allowed people to grow, which is why, you look at Joe Golding being a very successful head coach at Abilene Christian. It's because he let him coach. He let him learn while he was there. And, me now being a head coach, I feel way more prepared because from the time I was 18, I actually understood what was going on in shell drill instead of just having my hand out and somebody had to touch me. He made sure I understood it. And, we talked probably 4 or 5 nights a week, and it's been that way since we left Little Rock together. He stays in touch, and he's an unbelievable person, and he's a hell of a coach. And I appreciate what he's done for me for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, everyone I talk to has nothing but great things to say about him and his character. And then you get the opportunity, like you said, to work for Chris Beard, who we all know what a, star he is in the profession and how good he is. And he comes in, you guys win 30 games right off the jump. And he was only there 1 year, right?
1 year, yeah. So it was the perfect storm for me, just because my first experience, I'm working for a coach that's been there 10 plus years. I'm just learning about the routine we already have. This is what we do. And then Coach Shields was very, very culture driven, and so you get Coach Beard that walks in, who was a young first-time Division I head coach, and I got to be on the other side of it. Instead of how do we continue to maintain what we've been doing, it's more about, how do we start? How do we take it to another level? But from the very beginning, of what do we I was a part of every decision that goes into starting a program. I think that it was the perfect storm with, you had guys that, we had a coach that had been there 12 to 15 years. And I think you saw the similar thing with kind of when Casper left Stephen F. Austin to go to Texas State with Underwood, just kind of a new voice. And the guys are excited because it's different. And then we signed some really good players on top of the guys that we had. But Josh Hagans and Roger Woods were returners. And, I think that there's just kind of a refreshing thing of a new voice. And on top of that, we had a new athletic director. There was all kind of stuff going on campus. But my time with Beard taught me a lot. I think that the biggest thing I learned from Coach Beard was just like never settle. Like if you come up with something good too quick, it's not good enough. Like everything is just like never settle. We got to have better. We got to do better. Got to do better. And then it was just the urgency. I think Coach Beard is one of the smartest people I've ever been around. Just like, and he's really good where I think some people, it's hard for him. He's really good. I mean, we had a huge staff. He's really good at hearing everybody's opinion and taking it in and kind of wrapping it around and then making a decision, as opposed to just telling everybody what he wanted. He was very, very good at that. And then, it was the beginning. Coach Golding emphasized it even more, but it was the beginning of where I saw how important it was to just like build real relationships with these guys and spend time with them all day, all night. And I think that Coach Beard was very, very personal with the players, so that for 2 hours a day, he could coach them really, really, really hard, because they knew he cared. And, I think that that's very important in today's world, that these kids, it's not just given that you can coach them just because you're their coach. It's not like how it was a long time ago. You have to earn their respect. And I think he put in the time to do that.
One thing, let's talk about like evaluating, because that's one thing that like Coach Beard and Coach Golding both at Abilene Christian, they're both so good at finding like diamonds in the rough, dudes who aren't highly touted, and then 2 years later are all conference, or 1 year later is all conference. So was there any similarities to the way that they evaluate, or what was their philosophy there?
Yeah, they're actually very, very different. Coach Beard was the one non-negotiable for him was, do they love basketball? Do they love the game of basketball? Because you can't play for him if you do not love basketball, because they're 24/7 something. You're either doing something to take care of your body, or you're shooting, or you're doing schoolwork, or it's nonstop with him. Everything's very rigid in how they do things. And so we would ask that question to the kid. Every kid says yes. But we would ask the high school coach, we get a hold of parents, and then you ask certain questions to find out, to make sure they actually love the game. Are they in the gym? Do you have to beg them to be in the gym? Like, he wanted guys that absolutely loved the game of basketball, because he felt like if they loved the game of basketball, they could handle him. They could do everything that he wanted. They'll love it. If you don't love basketball, you feel like you got too much to do with him. And I think that was the biggest evaluation with him. Like, he talked about the word talent, and he liked guys that were proven. And I think it's obviously changed at Texas Tech. That's a completely different level. I think they're taking a lot more freshmen and having to develop them. But if you love the way he works and the way they're structured, if you love basketball, you're going to work and you're going to get better. And that's why they have these guys come for 1 year. They're number 85 in the country, and then they're lottery picks, because they're working. And then if you love it, you'll do it. And then with Coach Golding, part of it was the school. We had to recruit a certain way to the school. School wasn't easy, high academic. It's a Christian school, and by every sense of the word. So we had to recruit guys that at least, they didn't have to be gung-ho Christians, but they at least were willing to hear the school out and were willing to abide by the rules. And Golding's biggest thing is, do they play hard? Do they have high motors? Do they play hard? And are they coachable? Are they good kids? Because his philosophy is more at that level, at the low major level, especially at Abilene Christian. Like, we're not, with the school being harder, we're not going to get more talent than Stephen F. Austin, Sam Houston, Lamar. We can't get more talent than them. They can get junior college kids that have great issues, stuff like that. We had to take high school kids that were ready, qualifiers, ready for school, ready for college. And so he felt like we had to have the hardest playing team. So it's a lot easier. You can make every kid play a little harder than they already do. But if they already play hard, now you're making them play hard. I think that the last 2 years, and it's been a struggle here now at the junior college level of having all freshmen and sophomores, but I've been a part of the hardest playing teams I've ever been around the last 2 years at Abilene Christian. And I think anybody that played against us would agree. Those boys play hard, and they do it because of the relationships Golding builds with them, which is similar to Beard. And I think everybody's doing that, trying to do it now in coaching, because we all know how important it is. But it was an everyday struggle. But Golding didn't too much care. Like, when a guy would say, "Hey, do you want me to roll like this, or do you want me to roll like this?" And his response would be, "I want you to roll hard. I don't care." Like, he didn't, the little stuff like that. He just wanted it hard. Because we recruited guys that already played hard, it was easier.
Yeah, I love that. The more like I go through this, the more I think people that are just really, really crystal clear in what they want, like pick one or two things that are simple. Those are the people with the most success, because there's no, it's just clear. The expectations are clear. Whatever, we may lose, but we're going to lose playing hard, if that's their thing. I remember watching a game with you. I think it was in Vegas. It might have been the Arkansas Wings. I don't know who it was, but we were watching a game, and there was a post player who was probably only 6'4", 6'5", real heavy kid, heavy set kid. And he was out there doing work, but he does not look the part at all. And most people are sitting there overlooking him. And you were like, that's our guy right there. Just because of the fact that, I guess, because like no one else was, because he didn't look the part, because he wasn't longer and leaner, but that's like kind of what you guys were looking for.
Big A. Yeah, he's a sophomore. We signed him. Yeah, he had a hell of a freshman year. He played behind some really good post players and forwards. But I mean, I talked to him twice a week, and Coach Golding's loving him right now. But he was one of the guys that we he committed to Little Rock at first, and then when Coach Flang got let go, he decommitted. But he was one of the guys where I had to kind of convince Golding that when he got here, he would play hard, because he didn't always play hard, but he was just out of shape. He was overweight. But I think he'll end up being a hell of a player. But yeah, it's very similar. One thing I loved about working for Coach Golding is that he never asked me the question, who's recruiting him. If he did ask me the question, who's recruiting him, it was for the opposite reason of what you think. He didn't. If I said, hey, who's recruiting him, and I said Western Kentucky, he'd be like, well, stop recruiting him. We ain't beating Western Kentucky. But if I said Emporia State, he was excited. If he wanted, the only reason he would want to know who's recruiting him is, can we get him? It wasn't. He never came to me and said, well, why is nobody else recruiting him? He didn't care about that. He kind of felt like our niche was getting those Division II players that if they would have went Division II, they might be All-Americans, but they could be all Conference Southern players, because we all know that Division II All-Americans could play in a high major.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, it's great stuff. Okay, now let's talk about you getting this job at Otero. You mentioned all year you were trying to put yourself in a position to be able to get a job. What does that mean? Like, what were you doing?
I think that during the season, I didn't really think about it too much. I had a conversation with Coach Golding and Coach Beard before the season. And, basically I just did my job. I didn't do anything until the season was over. I think I was actually fortunate that the season ended a little earlier, that I could focus when jobs normally come open. But when I'm preparing myself, I just, for the most part, I just had Coach Beard and Coach Golding ready, and they knew that that's what I wanted. That as soon as I saw a job posted, I figured out who they needed to call, and I had them call and see if I could get involved. And then I think that because I had the mindset, I think that there was a few things I did throughout the year that maybe the year before I didn't. We did our scouts very different, maybe not that much different, but different than what I'm used to. Coach Bostic did personnel, every scout. Coach Tanner did what they ran offensively and how we were going to guard it, every scout. And I did what they did defensively and how we were going to attack it offensively, every scout. So it never changed game to game. And so as a result, I was more offense in practice. And Coach Tanner was our defensive coordinator, 100%. And then Coach Bostic would help him because personnel mattered as well. And so for the past 3 years, I focused almost all on offense. And so I think last year I was making sure that when it was time, I knew how to do what Coach Tanner does, because I think he's one of the best in the business at defense, and how he structures it, how he organizes it, how he builds into it. And it's not easy to do if you don't know what you're doing. And he obviously worked for Coach Casper, who was one of the best defensive coaches in the country for 20 years. And I wrote more stuff down, was more prepared for that when I got this chance. But as far as like actually getting the job, it didn't really start until the season was over. But I think that what I did was I saw Otero open up. I had a relationship with Coach Dewey, so I immediately called him. I gotta get a charger. My laptop's done.
All right. Don't die on us, Coach.
What's that?
Don't die on us here.
I figured that was more important than finishing the question. But so then I called Coach Dewey, and he was great. I worked with Coach Brian Berg at Little Rock, and built a really good relationship with him. And Coach Dewey was I think a walk-on and then maybe a GA, while Coach Berg was at Campbell. They have a really good relationship, and he was able to help me, which is like, hey, call this person. This person's important. This is what they want to hear. this type of stuff. And I have no chance of getting a job if it wasn't for him. And gave me the cell phone numbers of who Beard should call, because guys like Beard are busy. You get 1 or 2 phone calls, that's it. Who should he call that's actually going to make a difference?
Right.
And it's funny because the guy he called is a baseball coach, and Coach Beard at that time is the hottest name in coaching. He didn't know who Coach Beard was, and he had to look him up after he talked to him. But some guy, junior college dean of students, former baseball coach, he ain't too worried about college basketball.
Right.
But sometimes we get in this world thinking we're something we're not, for sure. But the great people, and I was fortunate enough that we had to do everything on Zoom, and I think that maybe that helped me, because I'd never been in an interview, in a real job interview. But I'm 30 years old. I have a lot of experience with technology. Like, I felt comfortable in this setting me and you are in right now. Like, it didn't feel uncomfortable to me. But
Right.
I think if it would have been in person, it might have been a little different. It would have been new to me, and I might have been going against guys that had a lot of experience with an in-person interview and, campus visit and all that stuff. I think everything happens in this world for a reason. And I think that was part of it. And then I just thought it was down between me and Ken Moses, who I've gotten to know as a great guy. And, me and Ken were in different places in our profession. And he would have been kind of taking this job as a chance to become a Division I assistant, where I was taking this job of the mindset I want to be a head coach.
Right.
And, nothing happens by mistake. You saw he just got the Montana State assistant job. I texted him and congratulations, and everything happens for a reason, and I think that everything worked out. I was supposed to be here. And I'm excited for sure.
Yeah. So what's been the stuff that, like, everyone talks about that transition of being a head coach. There's so much that you can't prepare for. What are some of those things that have just like caught you off guard?
Yeah. I think just again, man, I've been blessed for a long time, and I think I got lucky with the pandemic. Like, we had our first scrimmage on Saturday. All right. And so obviously what I was not prepared for was they asked me to bring in 30 guys. Well, it's hard to teach somebody how to teach the 2 very important guys involved in a ball screen defense how to guard ball screen defense when I got to get 15 reps in to get my whole team a rep, so they only really got 1 rep, where at Division I, they get 6 reps that day on that exact thing. And, we go down there, and like everything we've worked on, it was like, they didn't know it, and it was like, I think that's one thing I definitely wasn't prepared for, is just figuring out how to manage all these guys. And I think we got a plan with the red shirt program, and, focusing a little more on some little details and just kind of not moving too fast. I think that that's what a lot of young head coaches do. And I did 2 weeks ago, is I just start rolling, and our defense is the most important thing, is not getting beat middle, so I mentioned not getting beat middle every day, but do we really work on it when I'm already talking about the rotation when you're forcing baseline, and, I think that that's one thing. And then, I feel like for the most part, like, because I've heard so much as when you're first time head coach, you're not going to be prepared. There's going to be stuff. I think I'm just kind of not noticing it as much, because I already expected to not know what the hell I was doing. Like, I didn't come here thinking I was going to be great. So like, there's a lot of things every day that come up and just like, oh, didn't think about that. But to be specific, I'm missing some of them, I'm sure. But I think the biggest thing, I listened to Coach Sampson's interview the other day, and I just, the hardest thing is you have to be on every single day. As an assistant, you randomly go recruiting, or if you want to kind of check out for 20 minutes of practice, get your mind right a little bit, like while you're there, just clapping, doing whatever. When it's not your drill, you can do that. But as a head coach, it's like, if you don't show up mentally, physically, emotionally to practice is going to suck. So it's every single time I got to psych myself up. I think that's the hardest thing, is just being on every time the guys are around, which is a lot.
Are you, have you figured out any techniques to get yourself hyped up before practice?
Yeah.
Do you meditate before?
On morning practices, I do the assault bike. So the air bike.
Yeah.
I go 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 10 rounds in the morning. So then I'm already up. The first time I messed up and went too hard, and it was a reverse effect. I was dead tired. But now I'm getting better at it. And then I just kind of, I close the door from office in a second, just remind myself, like, you got to do it. You got to be on. And then once you get going, you're in practice, it's good. But it's good here the way we do it. You know, volleyball's on before us or women's basketball's on before us. So I always got a little time where I'm just sitting there waiting. And I try to use that time to just remind myself. But I've had some practices where I didn't show up and the team didn't show up and it was terrible and I'm mad and came back in the morning or came back at night. But the morning's the only one I have a consistent routine. I've been getting on that bike.
I love it. I love it. Well, Ted, man, I'm excited to see how you guys do this season, and I know you guys will be great, and looking forward to seeing how it all unfolds.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for jumping on. Absolutely.
Yes,
good luck.
Bye.